Why is retirement planning harder for households with $2 to $5 billion? You're wealthy enough to have problems, but not wealthy enough to ignore them. There's a strange middle ground in retirement planning that doesn't get talked about nearly enough. It's the $2 million to $5 million net worth household. From the outside, this looks like the sweet spot. Enough money to retire comfortably, enough assets to have options, and enough margin to feel secure. But in practice, this is one of the hardest segments to plan for. Not because there isn't enough money, but because there isn't excess money. You're wealthy enough, but mistakes are expensive. You're not wealthy enough to simply absorb inefficiency, and that creates a unique set of challenges that generic retirement advice simply doesn't solve. Today, we're going to unpack why retirement planning is actually harder for $2 to $5 million households, where the tax and optimization trade-offs are the worst, and why rules of thumb break down completely in this range. Before we dive in, my name's Ryan Knoll, and I'm a certified financial planner and founder of NavWealth Partners, a financial planning firm that helps clients nationwide make smart money decisions. Let's get started. $2 to $5 million portfolios are the awkward middle of retirement planning. Households under $1 million faced obvious constraints. Planning is about affordability, discipline, and sustainability. Ultra-high net worth families face a different reality. They can afford inefficiency, taxes are a nuisance, not a threat, and they can spend around problems rather than optimize around them. But at $2 to $5 million, households live in the awkward middle. This group typically has meaningful retirement savings, heavy exposure to pre-tax accounts, no meaningful estate tax relief, full exposure to income taxes, IRMAA and RMDs, and just enough flexibility to optimize, but not enough margin where they can be sloppy. Every decision matters, and that's what makes planning so difficult. But why does this range face the worst trade-offs? At $2 to $5 million, taxes become the primary constraint, not returns. Here's why. You're likely to have larger traditional IRAs or 401ks compared to the rest of your portfolio, Social Security income that pushes provisional income higher and makes IRMAA adjustments painful, capital gains from taxable accounts that could be taxed at nearly 20% if you're not careful, and required minimum distributions later in retirement that cause income spikes and more tax headaches. But unlike the ultra-wealthy households, you don't have large trust structures to shelter income, significant charitable vehicles absorbing excess cash, or enough assets to ignore the bracket inefficiency. This creates constant trade-offs. Convert to Roth now and pay, or wait and face RMDs later. Take income today and trigger IRMAA, or defer and compress those taxes later on. Spend taxable assets early or preserve them for flexibility. There are no clean answers here. Every move solves one problem while creating another. There's also no estate tax relief, but full income tax exposure. This is one of the most misunderstood realities of the $2 to $5 million household. Most families in this range are below the federal estate tax threshold, but may face some state implications, and will likely never owe estate tax, though. That sounds like good news until you realize what it means. It means income taxes become the dominant tax, not estate taxes. And income taxes don't stop at death. Under the current rules, pre-tax retirement accounts must be distributed to heirs within 10 years. Those distributions stack on top of the heir's own income, and the result is often the highest marginal tax rate of the beneficiary's lifetime, further eroding your wealth. So while there's no estate tax, there can be massive inherited income tax. This is where many $2 to $5 million families get caught flat-footed. They assume no estate tax means no tax problem. In reality, it just shifts the problem, often making it worse. There is also the Roth conversion dilemma. Roth conversions are often presented as the obvious solution. And for this segment, they can be powerful, but also dangerous when they're misused. If you convert too little, RMDs will explode later, causing tax bracket creep, Medicare premiums spike eating into your income, and taxes are compressed in your 70s and 80s, even though you are spending and doing less. But if you convert too much too early, then you pay high marginal tax rates unnecessarily and potentially compound sequence of returns risk. IRMAA surcharges erase more of your benefit than they should, and you reduce liquidity during the important years. For $2 to $5 million households, Roth strategy isn't about converting everything, it's about threading the needle. That means filling lower tax brackets intentionally, not blindly, respecting Medicare cliffs by targeting your individual sweet spot, coordinating conversions with spending needs and taxes, and thinking about heirs' future tax brackets, assuming they will inherit some of the money. This level of precision is exactly where generic advice fails. And frankly, it's why I welcome a lot of clients into my practice who have these generic plans from other advisors. Their current advisor doesn't do Roth conversions, or they might do Roth conversions, but there's no strategy behind it. It typically is because the client asks and they don't want to rock the boat. Or worse, they don't do them at all because the advisor doesn't want to lose assets under management because of the taxes paid on the conversions. But 9 times out of 10, just having a solid Roth conversion strategy for clients in this $2 to $5 million range is all it takes to save you 6 figures or more in taxes and have a happy client for life. But why does generic advice break down completely? Well, most retirement advice falls into one of 2 categories: rules of thumb or extreme case planning. Rules of thumb sound like spend your taxable assets first, delay Social Security to 70, convert as much as you can at low rates, keep a 60-40 portfolio, and my personal favorite, utilize a 4% withdrawal rate. And truthfully, they are all dumb rules that are inefficient. They're great starting points, but fall well short of a well-executed plan. Because in reality, a 60-40 portfolio might work, but what accounts should be equity and what accounts should hold bonds? And a 4% withdrawal rate might be perfect for you, but what if we can get the same after-tax income rate at a 3% withdrawal rate and allow your portfolio to compound at a higher dollar amount? Would that not provide a better outcome? These are bad, but what is even worse is extreme case planning. Extreme case planning is built for very low net worth households or ultra high net worth families. The $2 to $5 million household sits in neither camp. And because of this, you deserve advice that is not based on arbitrary rules or outlier scenarios. You deserve advice that is custom to your exact situation. Because when you properly plan, you will see hundreds of thousands of extra dollars in your accounts after you account for fees that a good advisor charges. That's what true financial planning is all about. Your results. So why does generic advice you are used to getting fail? Here's why. Spending taxable first can increase future required minimum distributions too much. Delaying Social Security without income modeling can create cash flow strain. Aggressive Roth conversions can trigger unnecessary Medicare costs. And static asset allocations ignore sequence of returns risk. The margin for error is smaller in this range, but so is the opportunity to unlock more of your wealth, which means personalization matters more, not less. So how do you optimize without simple answers at this level of wealth? At this level, retirement planning becomes an optimization problem. You're trying to maximize after-tax income to meet your expenses, minimize lifetime taxes, control your Medicare premiums, preserve flexibility, protect the surviving spouse, and then potentially leave assets efficiently to your heirs. But you can't optimize everything at once. Every decision has its trade-offs. Lower taxes now versus lower taxes later, higher income today versus higher guaranteed income later, portfolio growth versus volatility control, and simplicity versus efficiency. The mistake many households make is searching for a right answer. There isn't one. There's only the least bad set of trade-offs for your situation. Before we go any further, I wanted to pause this video and invite you to schedule a meeting with my team. I know that if you have between $2 to $5 million saved and are approaching retirement, or you're just starting yours without a plan, there is no better team out there for you. We know the ins and outs of planning for your exact situation. I've built this practice just for you. We have real answers that your current advisor won't touch and that you've been searching for. So take 30 minutes out of one day this week and meet with us. We will show you what we have shown hundreds of families in your exact situation, how we can manage your retirement to keep more of your hard-earned dollars in your pocket and give you peace of mind. Now let's talk about risk management and why it's harder in the $2 to $5 million range. At $2 to $5 million, risk cuts both ways. You need growth to fight inflation, support 30-plus year retirements, and offset rising healthcare costs. But volatility is dangerous because drawdowns affect lifestyle directly, poor timing creates permanent damage, and recovery time is limited. You don't have enough assets to ignore market cycles or bail yourself out with excess capital, but you've made way too much money to follow outdated rules and have no plan at all. That means risk must be intentional, purpose-driven, and aligned with income needs, not return target. Again, generic models will fail you here. Then there's also the behavioral pressure no one talks about. This segment also faces unique psychological pressure. $2 to $5 million households often feel like they should be fine, but hesitate to ask for help, compare themselves upward, and fear running out of money, but don't want to admit it. This leads to over-conservatism that erodes purchasing power, or over-aggressiveness chasing certainty. Neither extreme works. Good planning in this range provides clarity, not just projections. Let's go over a practical example. Consider a couple retiring with $3.2 million net worth, $2.1 million in their pre-tax accounts, $700,000 in taxable assets, and $400,000 in Roth. Without coordination, RMDs push them into higher brackets later, Medicare premiums spike, and heirs inherit large taxable IRAs, pushing them into even higher tax brackets than the original owners. With coordinated planning, they have gradual Roth conversions over 8 to 10 years, preferably between the day you retire and when Social Security starts, taxable assets used strategically, Social Security optimized for survivor protection, RMD exposure reduced, and heirs are going to receive more tax-efficient assets after they're gone. That's the same exact wealth, but a dramatically different outcome. To put some more concrete numbers behind this example, this couple might want to use IRMAA surcharge brackets as a base for income targeting. They obviously would need some of that money to live on in the interim, and let's just assume for sake of this example, they need about $10,000 a month after tax. Furthermore, let's also assume that if they do no Roth conversions by the time they hit their early 80s, their RMDs on top of their Social Security would push them into the 32% tax bracket. What they could do now is target the second IRMAA bracket, where their modified adjusted gross income would top out at $274,000 for the year. They would then send $120,000 per month home to spend, pay taxes from their brokerage account or cash on hand. Let's assume they just pay it from their brokerage account, and that their tax bill is roughly $45,000 in this instance, and they realize $25,000 in gains to pay for those taxes. This would bring their adjusted gross income so far to $120,000 that they're spending, plus the $25,000 in realized gains to pay for their taxes, or $145,000 total. This means that they have the capacity to perform a Roth conversion of roughly $130,000. So their IRA balance is drawn down by about $250,000 or 12% of the account value. Some of that was used for spending, but more than half is used to convert to Roth. They will pay IRMAA surcharges of $95 per month for each of them, but if they start this plan at 62 and take Social Security at age 70, then they're going to have to reduce their pre-tax IRA money to $1 million, grow their Roth balance to roughly $2.1 million, and maximize their Social Security benefits along the way. And those IRMAA surcharges only start to factor in after they take Medicare. Then they can scale back their conversions to fill up the 22% bracket moving forward, which is typically just below the point that IRMAA starts kicking in. And their pre-tax balance would stay roughly the same, but then they could continue that pace as RMDs start and likely remain in the 22% tax bracket going forward. So instead of being forced to withdraw money at the 32% bracket because of the RMDs, they can keep them in the lower bracket for the remainder of their life. That 10% delta in marginal income tax rates is how you unlock hundreds of thousands of dollars for you to use and not for Uncle Sam to take over the course of your retirement. Often for investors in the $2 to $5 million range, this represents an increase of 10 to 15% of their overall balance. No extra risk on your investments, no extra income from part-time jobs, no sacrificing your life, just good planning. Factor in things like qualified charitable distributions at RMD age. They will even be able to take some or all of their RMD tax-free while still being able to convert more on top of that until the balance is eventually zero and everything's been converted to Roth for their heirs. At this point, they would rely on their taxable assets to provide income that they could also be tax-free so long as they stay within the 0% tax bracket for capital gains. This is what my team calls the pseudo-Roth and is one of the easiest ways to unlock extra money in retirement. That's a high-level overview of how my team would turn a $2 to $5 million portfolio into a tax-efficient machine that maximizes your income, reduces your taxes, and leaves you with peace of mind in retirement. So why does this segment need better planning and not more products though? Well, at this level of assets, households don't need exotic investments. They don't need complexity for complexity's sake. They need integrated tax planning, income modeling, risk alignment, clear decision frameworks, and ongoing coordination. The value isn't in beating the market, it's in avoiding avoidable mistakes. In this range, those mistakes tend to be really expensive. What we do is use the tax code to your advantage first. Step 2 is we manage your assets to efficiently grow while keeping income and capital gains in check. And then step 3 is withdrawing funds and converting when applicable up to those benchmarks we are targeting to maximize your after-tax return. If you're not doing that or your advisor doesn't have a plan to help you do it, now is the time to change that. Following the NavWealth process helps clients with portfolios in the $2 to $5 million range drastically reduce their tax overhead, grow their investments, and provide them with certainty. You've worked way too hard to leave it to chance. Rules of thumb and outlier cases won't help you. Working with a team of planners who has done this for hundreds of clients will take chance out of the equation. The bottom line here is retirement planning is hardest in the $2 to $5 million range because you're exposed to almost every risk without the luxury of ignoring them. You face full income tax exposure, no estate tax shelter, complex trade-offs, tight optimization windows, and little margin for error. Generic advice fails because this segment lives in nuance, not absolutes. The families who succeed aren't the ones who chase perfect answers. They're the ones who make intentional trade-offs, backed by planning, not guesswork. If you're in this range and feel like retirement decisions are harder than they should be, you're not imagining it. And if you want a plan that's actually built for this level of complexity, that's exactly what we do at NavWealth Partners. Even if you're not quite ready for that yet, I encourage you to like this video and subscribe so you keep getting great nuggets of information to solidify your retirement. Thank you so much for watching, and as always, make smart money decisions.